Ladies and gentlemen, this is every Lorcana card in set 3 that is a super rare. There is 16 of them, 3 in each faction. We're going to be giving them a review. I'm joined by my friend Moyen, who I was also joined by for the full set review and the legendary card tier list. So make sure you check those out. Mr. Moyen, we've got Piglet, Pooh, Pirate Captain up first. And this is a card I'm a big fan of. She is 2 cost, Incable, 2 attack, 2 defense. She quests for 1. And when you have 2 or more other characters in play, this character gets +2 lore. So she can quest for 3. Thoughts on Piglet?
I think the condition's so easy to meet in a very aggressive deck that it's almost just the 2/2 that quests for 3 in a lot of cases. And it's Incable.
Yep.
I think this already goes straight into S tier.
Yeah, agreed. I absolutely love the look of this card. If you play a card on turn 1 and don't quest with it, for example, you play Piglet on turn 2, by the time she's ready to quest on turn 3, you can play another card and she's already questing for 3. She also obviously has big synergy with Rockstar Stitch as well, and could make that deck pop off in a big way.
And huge synergy with LeFou as well. Just playing a 1-drop, 2-drop, and even if you quest before a 1-drop and gets removed on turn 3, you can just... Wait, actually? Yeah. Oh, no, let's say you keep the 1-drop, and then on turn 3 you just play a 1-drop, quest for 3, and then you LeFou it. Bang, bang!
Yeah. Okay, up next we have a Incable 3 cost from Sapphire called Wendy Darling. She has 3 strength, 1 willpower, she quests for 2. She has ward, and she has support. So this card is pretty comparable to a card we already have in Sapphire. A 2-cost card, whose name I can never pronounce. Philo, we'll call him.
Mm.
Do you know how to say his full name?
No.
No, didn't think so. What do you think on Wendy?
I'm not paying 1 extra just for my Philo to have ward.
No.
So... it's probably D tier.
Yeah, we're putting the cards in D tier, which we don't think we're ever going to play in a competitive deck. That doesn't mean if you own Wendy and you can't play her, she's not the worst card in the world, but she's not going to make the cut in any competitive optimized lists, I don't think.
Yeah, so C tier would be kind of fine as well. It's just I'm never playing the card, so I don't really care that much if it's C or D.
Okay, up next we have Ariel, Adventurous Collector. She is a 3-cost Incable card. She has 2 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1. She's evasive, and whenever you play a song, chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn.
So this is evasive itself and can grant evasive to another character, either to protect it or to be able to banish an evasive character, which all sounds all right, but still a little underwhelming to me.
Yeah, it's important to note that she doesn't have enough strength to remove Carefree Surfer, which is also a Ruby card. So would you rather be playing Minnie Mouse Carefree Surfer on turn 3 or Ariel Adventurous Collector? And I'm fairly certain you'd rather be playing Minnie Mouse, who quests
99% of the time I would rather be playing Minnie Mouse.
And the fact that she's competing directly in that slot, I do think means she's not going to see much play at all. Perhaps some kind of Amber Ruby hybrid deck where you've got the other Ariel that sings songs. Maybe.
So for this card, at least I see some potential, which would allow me to put this in C.
Yeah, I think C is fair. But maybe slightly generous, honestly, because I'm not that impressed by her the more I look at it. Okay, up next we have Lyletiberious Rog, which is an uninkable 3-cost card in Emerald. It has 2 strength, 4 willpower, it quests for 1. When you play this character, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn, and whenever one of your other characters is banished, each opponent loses 1 lore. So this is going to be a card which is good in decks where you want to deny your opponent getting lots of lore quickly, because you're preventing one of your opponent's characters from questing by giving them Reckless. And then also, whenever one of your characters is banished, they lose lore. Has a pretty decent stat line in terms of a 2/4. I'm not that high up on this card personally, but in our set review, you liked the look of this one.
Yeah, I think this card has a lot of things going for it. The stat line, the effect giving something Reckless is very strong on play, so it doesn't need to quest to do its effect, it just does it, which is how I like what I like my cards to do. It doesn't just prevent something from questing, you can also force them to take an unfavorable trade with a card that they would otherwise maybe just keep to get a better trade in the future turns. And they lose a lore every time one of our other characters is banished. All in all, I think the card's great. I would even maybe have it low S tier, but I don't know if I can convince you
No, you
for
can't.
that.
A tier.
Okay.
Honestly, without your input, I probably would have put it like B tier.
Mhm.
I do agree. It's also uninkable, which can be awkward at points in game, but I do agree the fact that it's entering the board on deploy, it's having an instant impact. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, it's also very good against aggression, but I think it's just also a very flexible card.
Mhm.
So I'm fine that it's not S tier, but in my heart it's S tier.
Okay.
When you play your Piglet, I'm going to go Lyletiberious Rog on it, and you have to kill off your own Piglet.
No, that's so mean. My Piglet might have been able to quest first though, so
Maybe.
depends on who went first.
Mm.
Okay, up next we have Pongo. This is one of the. Let me start again. Up next we have Pongo, which is in the starter deck. It's a 3-cost Incable card in Amber. It has 3 strength, 2 willpower, quest for 1, and once per turn you may pay 2 ink to reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of this card.
I think it can be a pesky mid-range threat that's not great in tempo matchups, but it's very good against slower decks, I think. As it's a threat that's on a body that can draw a card each turn as long as it's not removed. And then still be used as a character to quest or to challenge. And in a deck with a lot of characters, this will draw most of the time. And characters is... Most decks will consist mostly of characters, I think.
Yeah.
I guess Amber likes to play songs as well.
And it does definitely fit into a deck where you don't have much card draw. So one that definitely comes to mind is Amber and Emerald. There's not much card draw in those decks. You often want to get to 6 ink with some of the cards like Genie and Emerald, but it's often quite difficult to do that. And without ramp tools like Dock and Lantern, it can be difficult. So Pongo could fit into a deck like that. Maybe with a Mufasa as well, because you're already playing lots of character cards with Mufasa. So yeah. I can see it being okay, but I'm honestly not a huge fan of the card at all. I think it's pretty average.
Ember Ruby Mufasa decks are probably the easiest deck to slot this into, because both decks want to play a lot of characters, and it would also work well in that type of deck, because that is a deck that wants to be aggressive at first, but then also have long-lasting aggression, like without running out of fuel, which this also helps with doing.
So where are you thinking?
To me,
I'm looking at B tier.
To me, it's A tier. Like maybe lower A tier, but to me, it's A tier.
Okay, I think the fact that it's got a home in Mufasa decks, which have been pretty good in set 2, is kind of making me swing towards A tier. I definitely don't think it's a card you're going to put in many decks, but in some ink combinations where you're struggling for card draw. So if you're not pairing Amber with Steel or with Amethyst, I can definitely see the argument for including Pongo in the mix.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't even make the card in Mufasa, because it is quite slow for that deck. But maybe also it could also make the card in the M by Sapphire deck. I don't know where its home is, but I still see the potential in Pongo.
I think it's a B tier card. I think it's not that good.
Put it in B tier if you want.
Get in. Prince Eric up next. A uninkable 4-cost card in Ruby. 2 strength, 2 willpower, quests for 2. When this character is banished, you may banish chosen character.
That's very understated, but it still quests for 2 and is very hard to efficiently remove, because you have the surprise maneuver effect. And it's not that easy to play around it, because they can just play it once you already have a character on the board. And for that reason, I think that this card's A tier for sure.
Yeah, I like this card a lot as well. Above Lyle or below?
For me, it's below.
Yeah.
Because for me, the other card's an S tier, so every A tier card is below.
We can put Lyle up to S, but we'll keep Pongo in B. How's that for a compromise?
Okay.
Okay. Up next, we have Genie, Supportive Friend, which is a inkable 4-cost card. 3 strength, 5 willpower, quest for 1. Whenever this character quests, you may shuffle this card into your deck to draw 3 cards. Now, we talked about this card quite a bit in our set 3 full review. If this card was in a different color to Amethyst, I think we'd be a lot higher up on it than we currently are. 3 cards is a lot, but I just don't really know if you need it in Amethyst.
Yeah, the thing is, in Amethyst, you already have very efficient card draw mostly in Friends on the Other Side, but also in the Merlin the Goat, Merlin the Rabbit.
Yep.
And all of these cards draw cards without sacrificing as much tempo as Genie sacrifices. Because Genie is literally... the effect isn't mandatory. You might be able to wait until you actually need the card draw and use it to challenge first, and then they need to deal with it. There's some applications for it, but I think there's such efficient card draw on Amethyst that Genie is probably a little too slow.
Are we going C tier or D tier?
All that being said, I still had it in B tier. So drawing 3 cards is a lot.
It is, but I think we have to look at it in context with the other options available in Amethyst. And I really just I just don't think I'm ever playing this card.
Yeah, it's also on Incable.
C tier.
Yeah, we're probably not playing the card, but the card's so much better than the 3-cost Ariel that we have in C tier.
I mean, it's so much better in a vacuum, but then you compare it to the other options. Ariel is giving you something very unique in your deck that you can't achieve elsewhere, and Genie is just worse than Friends on the Other Side, which is a 3-cost Incable card.
Okay. So let's put it in C, I guess.
Yeah. I'll put it above Ariel, though.
Okay.
Okay, up next we have Sheriff of Nottingham, which is a 4-cost uninkable card. 2 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 1. Whenever you discard a card, you may deal 1 damage to chosen opposing character. So, the most obvious synergy with this card is, again, with a whole new world. Mill decks love the look of this card. Full board control. Play this on turn 4, and then just, get a 5-cost card down, sing a whole new world, and suddenly you've got a whole bunch of removal.
Yeah, that interaction is very, very strong. It's just, it doesn't completely synergize with Whole New World, because often with Whole New World you want to be like, and at least not in not mill decks, you often want to be dumping your hand first, then play Whole New World to get card advantage. And this card doesn't reward you for that. This card just rewards you for playing Whole New World with a decently sized hand, which is still a very good synergy with Whole New World. But it's also the only card that really works well with.
Yeah, there's lots of other discard tools in Steel, but they're not generally that competitive. You've got cards like Simba and Cinderella, which draw a card to discard a card. Tinkerbell, 3 costs, can do the same as well. But they're not really the kinds of cards you're often playing in Steel at the moment. And so it might be a little bit too niche in the fact that it's only working with a whole new world. And as you mentioned, often you don't have many cards in hand if you're maximizing whole new world's value. It's definitely a card which Mill would like to play, but apart from that, it might not make the cut.
Where do you want to put it?
C tier?
Yeah, like between C and B, probably.
Where do you want to go with that?
I think C is okay.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I think C is probably fair, but we'll put it at the top of C. The last 4-cost card, which is a super rare, is an Incable in Emerald. It is Shenzi, the Hyena Pack Leader. It's got 0 strength and 6 willpower. When this character is at a location, she gets +3 attack. And when this character is at a location, when she challenges another character, you may draw a card. Now, on paper, this looks very powerful because she's going to be a 3/6, which can draw you a card every time she challenges. But it's also important to remember it does cost you ink to move her to a location. And a lot of the locations in general are quite understated. But perhaps a Emerald Ruby deck where Jim Hawkins, which is the legendary card we, of course, reviewed in the legendary card tier list, maybe she could be seeing play in that deck.
Yeah, so this card's not good enough to make me suddenly play bad locations like Jim Hawkins does. But this card is still extremely good.
Yeah.
Like assuming that we want to be playing locations already. So I still really like this card.
I like this card a lot too.
It having 0 strength once, let's say you move it to location, maybe they can remove the location and then you get put some challenges into this card without taking any damage on that card is a little risky and dangerous, but I think the upside is definitely there.
I'm looking at A tier.
Okay, for me it's either B or A. I think A is fine. It's like A is a little bit ignoring the context of how little we've been liking locations, but
Yeah,
It's okay.
true. I think in reality, she's more like a C or B tier card, just because we don't really like the look of the locations. But just on her own as a card, if we're just evaluating her, she's pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, as more locations come out in future sets, I think she's going to continue to improve. Okay, on to the 5-cost cards. We have Tinkerbell, Very Clever Fairy in Sapphire. She's a 5-cost Incable card. 3 strength, 4 willpower, quests for 2. Whenever one of your items is banished, you may put that card into your Inkwell face down and exerted. So, while this is a powerful ramp ability, you want to be ramping much earlier on in the game. To start ramping at around turn 5 is not really what you're looking to be doing. Around turn 5, you're going to want to have already ramped quite a bit, and you're going to want to be playing cards that are applying more board pressure, most likely.
So the best use case for this is already putting down self-banishing items in the early game. So then once you play Tinkerbell, you can immediately ramp, hopefully more than just once. But I agree that that's usually around the turns where we want to be fighting back for board, not ramping even more. So I'm not too high on the card, although I do see some potential.
Yeah, I don't think it looks bad, but I am kind of the same opinion. If you're looking, though, to end the game quickly, perhaps with Belle, she's not a bad card at all to help you get to Belle a little bit quicker. She does quests for 2 as well. But I would say she's probably C tier.
Yep, I agree on C tier.
Whereabouts in C? Probably below Sheriff?
And below Genie.
You reckon below Genie as well? Okay. Do we maybe move Ariel down to D tier?
Maybe.
Because
all the cards in C tier are just better than Ariel.
Yeah, I think we move Ariel down to D tier.
Cool.
Okay, up next we'll go Scrooge McDuck, the other 5-cost Sapphire card. It's an uninkable, 3 strength, 5 willpower. During your turn, this character gains evasive, so this card is able to remove Mickey Mouse Carefree Surfer, which is definitely nice. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play an item for free. And of course, if you've watched our legendary card review, you'll know there's a 7-cost uninkable item in Sapphire, which Scrooge McDuck has a lot of synergy with.
Yeah, it does. It's a little memey, the synergy, but it doesn't need to be the most expensive item that you're cheating out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 different use cases. Once it's pretty good against evasive, but also it can help you pursue your own game plan when it's cheating out items. That being said, I'm still not impressed with the card, even if it has a few different ways to function.
Yeah, the other thing is Scrooge McDuck comes down on turn 5, and then your opponent can maybe decide not to quest, for example, right? And then he's just kind of sat there. And what do you do with him then?
Yeah, it's just not impressive at questing either. I think it's C or B. What do you think?
I think C or B as well. I think I maybe want to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him into B tier.
Just in case the 7-cost item
Yeah.
is worthwhile playing. Okay, sure.
But definitely below Pongo by quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, up next you have Helga Sinclair in Emerald, 5-cost uninkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower. She has shift 3. She quests for 2. And whenever this character quests, you may deal 3 damage to chosen damaged character. So, of course, bear in mind, in Emerald, we have Morph. So she is going to be able to shift pretty consistently if that is what you're looking to do. But you are going to need to be setting up damage on the board already. So perhaps pairing her with Steel. It does seem like there's going to be some kind of Steel Emerald deck using cards like Helga. And I think that 3 damage is an awful lot. And I have to say, I quite like the look of this card.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like an Emerald card. It really looks like an Emerald Steel card.
Yeah.
Which is okay, because I think this can work very well in that deck, because that deck has a lot of ways to deal a little bit of damage, and then you can finish off those characters with the ability of this. So she can be a win condition on her own if you ever get to a board state where the opponent has to play characters to contest her instead of already being able to challenge into her. And then each turn you can maybe put a little bit of damage into the character that they just played, quest with Helga, and finish off those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And that way generate so much tempo and lore that will inevitably win you the game.
She also has a pretty impressive stat line with that 4 willpower. She's not going to be removed by Smash. She can be removed by Zeus, but...
Yeah, 5 cost 4 is still not that impressive of a stat line. And it still doesn't do anything on play. So I don't want to rate this card too highly either.
You can shift her though and quest instantly and then deal 3 damage potentially.
Yeah, but for that you already need a damaged character on the board for your opponent early, which I think is a hard condition to meet. A lot harder than later in the game.
To me, I agree. So are we looking at kind of A to B tier, that kind of range?
Oh, I was thinking like top of C.
Top of C.
But if you're thinking A to B, I'm thinking top of C. I think B is a fair compromise.
Yeah, I think let's put it at the bottom of B. This card is definitely one that we're gonna have to wait and see on really how easy it is to meet her condition, because you're going to be building your deck around her somewhat. But I do think that there's quite a lot of support for this archetype in Steel and Emerald with the set. Okay, on to the 6-cost cards. We have Little John, a Incable 6-cost card in Steel. It has 4 strength, 5 willpower. It quests for 2. It can shift for 4. And it has the ability that reads, while this character is exerted, your characters with Bodyguard gain resist 1 and get 1 lore. This is a very exciting card for me. I love a bit of bodyguard action. We've got a lot of new bodyguards in both Amber and also a new bodyguard or 2 in Steel as well. So definitely looks like an Amber Steel card. But how good is it? 6 cost is pretty expensive. You are going to be wanting to ideally shift this card so that you can quest with it instantly and then it's exerted, giving your bodyguards resist and more lore. I think it could be very good, but it really depends on the Little John shift cards. We should actually take a look at those, right?
Sure.
It looks like Little John, Robin's Companion, which is a 2/4 bodyguard. During a turn, this character gains evasive, is going to be the shift target. Not the best shift target. Of course, you could also target Morph, but most likely you're going to be wanting to play Little John with Amber. I think the fact that the shift target is not the best is kind of spoiling this card a little bit for me.
Yeah, it is. It is a card that you want to be completely building around. It's like, can this card just enable a bodyguard deck? But even in that deck, you would need to be shifting, because if you play it for 6, I think it comes down far too late. So you need to be shifting it and then also playing a lot of 2/3 bodyguards that cost 2, and maybe a prince, because it does turn these cheap bodyguards into absolute powerhouses.
Yep.
That being said, I think it's, if the shift targets aren't great, and then also we will be completely relying on drawing both the bodyguards and the bodyguard payoff. And even then, I don't think it's that crazy. I still don't think the card's great.
Yeah, I think looking at the lack of shift options, it's probably going to have to be, in fact, an Emerald Steel card. And bodyguards in general are just very, very good cards in aggressive decks. So I could see Little John still being worth including in a deck like that, because bodyguards are very, very good for aggro decks, protecting your board. I think Little John might prove to be pretty good, but is suffering from the lack of good shift targets, which I think makes the card a lot worse than it otherwise would be. So I'm thinking C tier.
Yeah, I think C tier as well. Also, every time you don't shift this, that means this card won't be exerted the turn you play it, which
exactly.
also slows
It
the
turns out
game
way
down
too
a lot.
slow, yeah. You really need to be shifting this guy. Okay, up next we have Madame Medusa, who is a Ruby card, uninkable 6 cost, 4 strength, 4 willpower. She quests for 1. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 3 strength or less. Now, there's a lot of characters that you're going to be wanting to target that have 3 strength or less. Very, very high cost characters. She's quite comparable to Lady Tremaine, the 6 cost uninkable in Ruby from set 2. But she does quest for 1 less. But I think this card is very, very good.
I think this card's pretty incredible. It's just, it is uninkable and doesn't quest for a lot. So there will be board states where maybe this doesn't have great targets, or only smaller targets, and you will be a little bit sad about drawing her. But she can be a great board swing. Just imagine, I don't know, you're on the play, you do your turn 5 play, your opponent drops turn 5 Beast from set 2, and then you just banish it with Madame Medusa on turn 6.
Yeah.
There will be great tempo. They don't even get to draw a card with it yet. And it's not the end of the world if you just banish, let's say, a 3-drop or a 2-drop with this. I think that's still decent tempo.
Yeah. And that's the important thing to note. Lady Tremaine, your opponent chooses which card is banished, whereas with Madame Medusa, you choose.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, at least in set 2 meta, it had evolved to a spot where people were actively almost always playing around Lady Tremaine, always just playing another 1-drop alongside your big character against any Ruby deck. So it wasn't banishing high impact characters that often either. So but this only questing for 1 is also a huge downside in comparison. I still think it's at least high A tier.
I think I want to put it in S tier.
Sure.
I'm going to put it above Roke and below Piglet.
I would put it below Rogue.
Okay, sure. Okay, the last 6-cost card is Alice, Tea Alchemist. She is a 6-cost Incable in Amethyst, 4 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 2, and you can exert her to exert chosen opposing character and all other opposing characters with the same name. Now, of course, if your opponent is playing the Dalmatians deck and they've got 101 Dalmatians on the board, that's going to be pretty impactful. But realistically, you're only going to be exerting 1 character most of the time, and therefore she's going to be very lackluster, and I don't think she'll see any play.
Also, if they have 101 puppies on the board, I call that judge because they can only play 99. This card's awful. Also, the fact that you have to not quest and instead exert her to use the effect is just adding on top of the effect not being that strong, and the stats also being below rate. So
I almost
think
want to make a new
tier.
tier for this and call it the Alice Tea Alchemist tier because she's so much worse than Wendy and Ariel, but no.
Yeah, she's similar to Wendy.
Okay, onto the 7 costs. We have Magicka Dispel, the Midas Touch. She's an uninkable 7-cost card in Amethyst, and she has 4 strength and 6 willpower. She has shift 5. Whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to the cost of one of your items in play. So most likely, Magicka is going to be paired with Sapphire and the legendary... What's this card called? The legendary card? The legendary item?
I don't know.
Something.
Lucky Dime.
Lucky Dime. Yeah, she's going to be paired with Lucky Dime, where you can, when you quest with her, get 7 lore at once. And that sounds pretty flipping exciting. So I'm pretty excited about Magicka Dispel, I have to say. I think this card is very good.
I don't know if I would go that far because
7
every time
lore?
I don't pair...
She quests for 7, mate. Think
okay,
about that.
But every time I don't have Lucky Dime on the board, will this be a terrible card?
I mean, you could quest for 3 pretty easily as well.
Or 7 cost?
Okay, that's kind of bad. But think about the Lucky Dime, mate. Questing for 7.
It's a nice dream with Lucky Dime, but for me it doesn't tip the scales for me.
Sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it does.
Where are you putting her?
In the fun tier. Which is C or D.
She can't go in D tier. She's got way too much potential.
Okay, then put her in C. One of the fun tiers.
Okay, up next, we have the final 7-cost card, and it's a Steel Simba. And I've got a conspiracy theory that all the Steel Mufasas and Simbas in this game suck. And this is a 7-cost Incable card, 5 strength, 7 willpower. It quests for 2. The ability reads, when you play this character and whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge during your turn, choose 1. You may draw 2 cards, then choose and discard 2 cards, or you may deal 2 damage to chosen character. So when you play Simba, you can deal 2 damage, or you can draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, and then if Simba banishes another character in a challenge, you can choose one of those again. So I quite like this card overall. I think being able to deal 2 damage on deploy is pretty nice, and it also has the flexibility of fixing your hand potentially. However, it is pretty flipping expensive.
That line is decent. 5/7 and questing for 2 is also alright. I think the effect doesn't do enough for being a 7 cost.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it says either deal 2 or draw 2, discard 2. But if we have Sheriff of Nottingham, we can draw 2, discard 2, and deal 2.
Damn, okay.
So it's D tier, I think.
I think D tier is probably fair. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the card might look more impressive than the few cards that we put higher than D tier, but a card needs to do a lot if it costs 7.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and finally, last but certainly not least, we have Chabog, which is a 10 cost uninkable card with 9 strength and 9 willpower, and it quests for 3, and it has 2 abilities. When you play this character, pay 1 ink less for every character card in your discard. So, if you have 10 characters in your discard pile, this will cost nothing. If you have 11 cards in your discard pile, will you gain 1 ink, Moyen? I'm guessing not.
Can you repeat that? What?
If you have 11 characters in your discard pile, you pay 11 ink less. So would you gain an ink by playing this?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, me too. When you play this character, shuffle all character cards from your discard into your deck. So this is going to be a card which is very good when paired with Steel because of A Whole New World. You're going to be cycling your deck a bunch. If you're maybe playing like a Rockstar Stitch deck as well, you could maybe just have this in the mixer as just like a 1 or 2 of, where you can just occasionally dump it down on the cheap.
Yeah, and with nothing completely crazy enabling this, I doubt you will be playing a lot of copies of this, even if you want to be playing this card, because as soon as you play it, the next copy is terrible because your discard file's empty again.
Yep.
That being said, I can see maybe some mid-rangey decks playing 1 or 2 copies of this and having a crazy tempo swing a little bit later in the game once the discard pile has already filled up a little bit.
Yeah, I really like the look of this card as a card that you just put in as a one-off copy here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we putting it?
I'm putting it in A.
A
I still think it takes
me as well.
Yes, it still takes too much time for me to consider putting it into S until this card is actually like a good playable card.
Okay, so that is our super rare card review. I think a couple cards to maybe keep an eye on are Magicka and Little John. I think that they could prove to be a bit better than we've reviewed them. Particularly Magicka. I do think there's some potential in this cheesy Amethyst Sapphire item deck, but perhaps not. Of course, if your item gets removed, it completely whiffs. But overall, I'm very happy with how we've reviewed each of the cards. Moyen, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you if they want to see more from you?
Thank you for having me. Every week we release an episode on our podcast on Lorcana with Brandon and Kava, and I think it usually releases on Friday-ish. I might be wrong, maybe Saturday.
How do you not know? You've been doing it for like 6 months.
Yeah, we record on Wednesday.
Okay,
but
they record on Wednesday, guys, but it doesn't come out on Wednesday. It comes out on Friday-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, let us know what you think in the comments. Is there any cards you massively disagree with? Do you think we're underrating or overrating any cards in particular? Do you think that Alice T. Alchemist is the best card in the game? If you do, be sure to let us know. Thanks so much for watching, and see you on the next video.